Hello, this is Deja James from Partnership for the Public Good, or PPG, here to bring you the Public Good Podcast. We are an organization of over 380 partners trying to make a better Buffalo Niagara region. Over the last few weeks, I've had a few episodes about kind of our federal responses to, actually local issues rather of federal issues, local responses and local work. And so last week we had Medicaid on with the Healthcare Education Project and Jasmine Westbrook. We've had Anna Porter from the New York Immigration Coalition talking about immigration work. And we have a lot of other partners that we're going to be having on in the next few weeks. But this week I wanted to do a special episode that was internally PPG staff. So I'm joined wonderfully by my colleagues, Sarah Wooten and Regine Danga, and they are both here to talk with me about what PPG is doing in response to federal ongoing things happening. And there's a lot. So we work under a lot of different issue areas. If you ever go to our website or the Buffalo Commons, you can see issues from environmental to youth and community services, on and on and on. I don't know, housing. And so the point of this is that we wanted to be able to convene spaces where people working under a lot of different issue areas can come together and strategize and understand how they can be working in this current political moment, and how do we all support each other. And PPG's created a few different spaces for that. But I wanted my colleagues to join me here today because I really want a full perspective of what we were feeling as staff at PPG, and what we're offering, therefore, to our partners and to the community at large, which I think we've made a marked choice to offer it not just to our partners, but to community at large as well, because we realize that our partner network really consists of certain people, nonprofit professionals, maybe people work at government agencies, but that kind of excludes still a large portion of the population. So we want to make sure we're including everybody. So yeah, I'm going to let my colleagues start. I'm going to say the first question that I have for us here. And what was the current federal changes that concerned kind of all of us and prompted us to have a discussion at PPG about what we can be doing to take action against things like, immigration changes, anti-DEI movements that are impacting what nonprofits can be working on, how they can be wording, the work that they do, their websites, their brochures, their programs. How has that impact then made us kind of jump to action in some of the work we're doing right now? I don't know who wants to start.
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the huge things we've been seeing happening is cuts to funding to many of our partners, and that has resulted in the loss of critical services for many of the folks in Buffalo. For example, if we think of housing discrimination, you're denied an apartment because you have a child and the landlord would rather not have a child in that apartment, or you're denied because you have a Section 8 voucher and the landlord doesn't want you there for that reason. Those are illegal reasons to deny someone an apartment, right? But who's enforcing that law? Well, in Buffalo, largely it's Housing Opportunities Made Equal, which is one of our partners. And they do trainings for landlords to let them know what's legal and what's not. They also do trainings for tenants to let them know their responsibilities. And when tenants think that they've experienced housing discrimination, they invite tenants to submit complaints to Housing Opportunities Made Equal. Housing Opportunities Made Equal then investigates those complaints and moves forward with them potentially in court or potentially just, conversing with the landlord directly. And a lot of that is funded through the federal government, through HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Department. And HUD has been cutting a lot of fair housing funding across the U.S. So HOME and many other organizations like it across the U.S. are just losing funding for a lot of these services. And so who's going to be here in Buffalo making sure that people are able to rent an apartment when we all deserve, safe, quality housing? Well, if we don't have somebody making sure future that that's happening, it may not happen, right? And that's just one example of hundreds of different services that are provided across Buffalo that require funding, and that we're receiving funding from the federal government, and we've been just seeing them cut here, there, and everywhere. So that's a huge concern to us.
Absolutely. And it's been hard because we've seen a lot of our colleagues laid off because of these cuts. And so contacts and folks that we've worked with in the housing space, in the immigration space, and a lot of these different spaces, they've cut their workforces by 50% or more. And so our contacts, our friends, our colleagues, our, compatriots in the fight are gone and unemployed, which is a whole nother socioeconomic issue, especially in a place like Buffalo, who's trying to see, some type of economic resurgence. And so for this blow to come as we're trying to build back up as a Rust Belt city is really, really, really tough. So it's really tough to see. Regine, what else have you been seeing, on the federal level that's kind of impacted locally here?
Well, it is a lot, like Sarah mentioned, and what you pointed out, it is a lot. Sometimes you just feel like you're going to bed to sleep, and then tomorrow you don't know what is going to happen. It really creating a lot of fear in our partner that we're working with, not only partner, but also community members that you're working with. So part of my work at PPG, I focus heavily on immigration and refugee population, and I hear concern not only from organizations, but also from the community, fear of, oh my goodness, if I go to the store and I get deported, or, you get arrested by ICE, and then who knows, you get deported, or your family cannot even find you, or they don't know where you went. So there's those fear there, and then fear of knowing your right. Are they going to comply with the right that you're stating, like, this is my right, I can decide not to speak. And then we're also seeing, like, in immigration, here in Buffalo, we got hit really hard. As you know, Buffalo, we are a city of good neighbors, and also we resettle a lot of refugees here in Buffalo for decades. I don't remember when it started, but for a long time. And we even saw that increase of population in Buffalo because of refugee coming here to Buffalo. And we saw, like, organizations like International Institute, Journey's End, they had to close their door because of the federal funding to reset organization, which is heartbreaking, which means it is not only impacting employee here that they were working in reset organizations, but it is also impacting people globally, especially those that are working with refugee camps. So they're not able to serve their population or even provide aid that they used to provide to refugee while waiting to be resettled to U.S. or any other country.
Yeah, and, I think that's one of the things that have definitely been consistent from the first Trump administration and the first term has been the attacks on immigration, refugee resettlement, things of that nature. I think, this has been more vicious in a way that last time, refugee resettlement kind of was able to still sneak by a bit, obviously the borders and other things was a different issue. But now it's kind of just this zero, nobody from anywhere can come. And not just that, but folks who are here who maybe even have paperwork or documentation are also subject to maybe being deported. And so, as you said, it creates this sense of fear that it's just 10 times worse than the first time around.
Yeah, it is. It's not only fear, but also re-traumatizing refugee. It's kind of reminding them being back to the camp. So, like, based on a couple of research that I read, and Dr. Yunjin and I from School of Social Work, we did a research, and based on the data that we are hearing from the community, they were saying being in refugee camp, you are restricted. You cannot go anywhere. You need to have your ID. You need to, to state where you're heading. So now here in Buffalo, or in U.S. in general, you feel like you need to have your ID or your green card or your passport anywhere you go. God forbid you forgot and you get arrested, your family might not even know where you went, or even mistakenly get deported in a different country.
Right, and not to mention now too, as far as concerns about people's First Amendment rights to speak out about their feelings about things. If it seems like a lot of people are concerned at this point that they can't critique different things that the government is doing because they may just have their green card revoked out of nowhere. We've been seeing that happen too, so that's really concerning.
Yeah, and this is coming off the heels of even students at UBs whose student visas have been revoked for minor like traffic violations or other unknown infractions that in any typical world outside of this one right now would not have been the case. And even seeing the disappearing of a Hispanic man, back to South America, and now all of a sudden it's, well, we don't know where he is, we can't get him back, So the disappearing of people as well. And we have to name that clearly because I think in the rising of fascist movements, a lot of the beginning of it gets swept under the rug, or we're gaslit to say, oh, well, this isn't that big of a deal, you're overreacting, whatever, what have you. And then before you know it, it's the full-blown thing and everybody's scared, right? And so I think it's really important for us to be naming things what they really are, even if there is this counter narrative pushing back against what we feel to and believe is very true. Yeah.
And to that point, I think as people are getting picked up and sent to El Salvador without due process, without any kind of trial for who knows how long, it seems like there's not really any kind of sentencing, that's hugely concerning. And maybe people are able to kind of put it out of their minds because they're thinking, okay, well, those are members of a gang or whatever the case is. I'm not a member of a gang, so I should be fine. But like you said, that's just the first step. And they start with the people who, they think will be the ones that they can get away with doing it with. And then down the road, Trump has already talked about sending U.S. citizens to El Salvador, which obviously is completely illegal. But at this point, could he get away with it, even for some period of time? So it's something that we should be all concerned about now.
Yeah, it's terrifying. And I think that a lot of the decisions are being made on just conspiratorial what ifs. I even saw in local comments on local news on the student visas being revoked, some people were like, oh, they were probably spies anyway or something. And I'm like, you think some college kids are so, and like, if we're in a James Bond movie, maybe some of them are, right? But even still, out of 9 something students, like you're thinking every single one, it just doesn't make sense. But even using things like that and the QAnon type stuff to kind of excuse certain behaviors. It's terrifying to me, actually, how kind of down the rabbit hole people are getting.
Yeah, it is extremely terrifying, and it is difficult to stay silent. And I think at this time it is more for us to put ourselves out there and educate yourself, not just believing what you hear. Because we all have our own intention. If I have my intention to make certain population to dislike another population, I will instill this wrong information intentionally because I want people to believe in that, and because most of the time people do not take time to verify the source information. Is this accurate information, or am I just getting fed incorrect information? We end up believing things that are incorrect and then act on those beliefs, and then we ended up making the wrong decision after that. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that is the moment that we're living.
Yeah, it is. And when you have a whole, and speaking of naming it and speaking it clear, when you have a whole kind of arm of federal government now called DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, ran by someone that's very much not in elected office, there are a lot of assumptions and kind of sweeping decisions that are made without proper research, without proper auditing. And we've seen the impact of that, one, on funding, obviously, but the closing of public health entities, of entire, governing bodies of the federal government. And it's very concerning, especially because they're really other than the kind of excuse of saving money efficiency, there's no kind of rhyme nor reason to the decisions that are being made other than racist assumptions or other classist, elitist, all of the things that you can think of. So it's really a concerning thing. And so we've seen that happen. How are we as PPG preparing to fight back against changes, as well as helping prepare our partners in the community that we reside in, at least the Buffalo Niagara region, to be able to fight back, whether it be on the local level or for federal means?
Yeah, so we have a few things coming up, a few different events we put together to try to start doing that. One is this Advocacy and Action Summit we have coming up on April 26th. It's pretty much an all-day thing from 9 a.m. to 4:30, and we invite anybody to sign up for it. We'd love for as many members of the public to be involved as possible. And basically the idea here is that we do a lot of these trainings generally for our partners on how to advocate, what does that look like, what are tips, how to build a coalition with other folks to make your voice heard, and, how to do trauma-informed advocacy, all of these things. And we wanted to make that available to the public. So that's what that day-long session is. And we're also involving many of our partners to share their stories of advocating for policy change in Buffalo and many of those wins as well. So I think it will be also kind of uplifting to hear about, how things have progressed in Buffalo in different ways and how people made that happen. But yeah, anything you either want to share about that?
Yeah, I know when people are going through difficult times, sometimes it is difficult to see, do I have the power? Do I have the ability to change situation? So at first, I feel like we have to stay calm in order to think logically and address and fight back. And even though you feel powerless, and that's why we are hosting this summit on April 26th, to equip people. So regardless, do not just limit yourself, I don't have a degree in policy, or I'm not a social worker. Anyone can do this work. And you don't need to be at the forefront doing policy analyzing and advocacy. You could do other things like signing a petition and all that. And also just understanding the way your local government and state government operates and how the policy are put in place and how you could influence that by also advocating. So so we're definitely doing that, and we're going to host good workshops. One is Policy 101. What is policy? Like just learning what is policy. There's different forms of policy. There is policy related to budget. There's policy related to legislation. And then learning about different strategy. How do you move and make sure that you ended up passing a bill and become a law and help a lot of people here in New York State? So that is one of the workshops that we're going to host, and also working with government elected official. How do you collaborate with them? Even though you might disagree with some of them on the things they're voting on, but can you collaborate with them during this time to make a huge impact here in Buffalo and also New York State?
Absolutely. And for those watching, when this airs, that'll be this coming Saturday. So April 26th will be this Saturday. So it's still not too late to sign up. I will make sure the registration link is in the comments, as well as the flyer, and all of the information is on our Instagram page, as well as our Facebook page and our website, ppgbuffalo.org. So make sure that you're checking that out. And we'll have all of the summit sessions and special presentations, as well as our plenary Winning Change in Buffalo, where we're having advocates who have gotten laws or legislation passed before, really from a grassroots level, community-based level, talking about how they made that happen and what it took to make it happen. So we're really excited to be putting that on for the community. It's in partnership with so many different partner organizations of ours, because we by no means PPG feel like we're the only experts in spaces of policy, and which is why we have such a large partner network of 380 organizations. So some of those organizations are helping partner with us to make that happen, and you can also check them out on our website and on our social media pages. But I just wanted to shout that out really quickly. We're also doing another series, Sarah, that's more in reference to what we were talking about before, Trump, the national and federal crisis going on. What's that series?
Yeah, so we're calling it Protecting Our People, Communities, and Organizations, Local Action in a Time of National Crisis. And the idea with this is that, there are so many different fronts where the decisions of the Trump administration are impacting everybody on the ground, that we want to address that in a few different ways. So each of these workshops is going to be going into, what's happened so far on this topic, how has the Trump administration changed what's happening in this space, sharing key resources, what are things locally that people can take advantage of or use to advocate, and then also, discussing local action. So what are the action steps that people can actually take on these issues? We just had one last week about how nonprofits can fight back, how to lobby and advocate. And I think we'll talk more about that in a second. But our one coming up, actually, I guess this will be past the date. So maybe the next one to talk about is fighting for LGBTQ plus rights. That'll be on Wednesday, April 23rd from 12:30 to 2 p.m. So talking about how trans folks have been impacted by a lot of the decisions that Trump is making, and also what are those local resources that people can plug into, and how can they get involved in advocating to, have a just, welcoming community instead of the one that Trump has been trying to form. And the one following that will be about immigration policy and practice on Wednesday, April 30th, again from 12:30 to 2 p.m. I think we're also going to be recording these, so if you can't make it at the time, we'd love for you to check it out afterward. But that one, again, we'll be talking about a lot of what Regine had mentioned before about how immigration's being impacted and how people can get involved. And then I think we're also planning on doing a couple more that we haven't scheduled yet, one around voting rights, one around digital security, and protecting the First Amendment right to speak out. But those are the kind of overall topics.
Yeah, and I think another one that we are going to do is Medicaid and health equity, and also private and right to protest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're trying to cover all of our bases here, and we've had a lot of them on the podcast, and we're also partnering with partner organizations for these sessions as well. So once again, we're not the only experts in the room, and especially some of these spaces, we are not the forefront leaders in those spaces. So we're trying to make sure to uplift some other organizations.
Yeah, and sorry, just one more that is happening in our time currently, but it will have passed by the time you see this, but you can watch the recording, is around workers' rights and the labor movement in New York State. So if you're involved in a union or would like to be and want to understand what are worker protections right now, definitely check that one out.
Absolutely. And even though you might miss that particular session, there still will be part of our plenary at the Advocacy and Action Summit on Saturday. Max Bowman will be joining us, and he was one of the forefront leaders in unionizing the co-op. And so if you want to learn a little bit more about unionization, literally from point A all the way to point Z, you can come by and listen to the plenary and listen to Max talk about that process. We're hoping to do a lot more labor-related, labor rights union and things like that issues going forward in the future. So that won't be your only opportunity to catch that topic.
One more that I think the thing we're planning on doing is creating a resource page on our website that encompasses a lot of just different resources that people can check out. I think some of them will be related to issue areas like workers' rights or like LGBTQ plus protections, but I think there will also be some that are, like I'm thinking of one right now. There's a tracker online where you can check out all of the different lawsuits that are happening based on things that Trump has put out, how people are pushing back and what those lawsuits would do, if they were decided a certain way. So there are all kinds of resources like that folks can be checking out if they want to keep tabs on what's happening. That will be on our website some point soon, I think in the next, week or so by the time you hear this.
Yeah. I want to kind of go on a little bit of an end note that's a little different, but I'm wondering, just as each of us personally, living through these times, we're all impacted by this in different ways. And so I know for me personally, to get through this time, I've delved into creative arts a little bit more to help kind of have a self-care medium where I'm still kind of doing something, but it's takes my mind away from a second from the world that be, even though it's not kind of in a vacuum. Obviously, that still influences how I approach art. But I'm wondering, as you both, just personally, how are you doing right now? How are you kind of getting through this personal time? Do you find that even in your personal time, you want to be organizing, you want to be active in advocacy and things of that nature? We do this like kind of our 9 to 5s, right? So I feel like then sometimes our personal space feels like, okay, yeah, we're going to do some stuff, but we also need to take care of ourselves in that moment. So how do you feel like you're balancing that, taking action, but also taking care of yourself right now?
That's a great question. It is hard to find balance, honestly. It is really difficult, especially at work. You're hearing from your partners what is going on, and the human instincts, you really want to jump and help and leave what you're doing. And then in the community, you're also hearing what people are experiencing, right? And for me, being Congolese American, but also I'm dealing with the genocide back in DRC. So like you're being attacked in 3 corners, and you are here like in the middle, and you're trying to cope with everything and asking, which direction should I go? And I think one of the things that really resonate a lot with me is that I cannot solve every single problem. I need to find one issue at a time that I'm going to focus on. Because if I focus on a lot of things, I'm not going to do amazing work. But if I just focus on one thing and hoping, maybe somebody else is doing what I'm not doing. And basically, I am a big fan of staying, what is my control right now? What do I have control? And within my control, if there's any issue, is there anyone in my circle that I can reach out to? Hey, this is what is going on, and I know you're working on this particular issue. And that is in their control, and then they can hopefully pick that up and work on that particular issue. I cannot address every single issue, and definitely prayers has been helping a lot. Being closer to God really helped me to really process this difficult time. Sometimes it is difficult. When you go outside, you feel hopeless, and just praying, it kind of make you feel sense of hope and faith that things will change, and just reminding, oh my goodness, my ancestors, they experienced worse things than this, and they were able to escape it. I mean, they were able to fight and won, but we can do the same thing. We just need to revisit, what did they do? What can we learn from there? And apply some of that here, and we can definitely make changes. And of course, I love music.
Yeah.
So music is like my go-to. When I'm just listening to music, depending which particular genre, it's just kind of when you surrender yourself and allow yourself to be at peace while listening to music and be present, it really allows you to be in this, I always call La La Land, whatever land that you're in, just imagining.
Wherever you want to be.
Exactly, just decompressing a little bit, and then you come back to reality, and after that, you have to deal with the next thing.
I love that. If y'all can't tell, Regine is a licensed therapist and a social worker, so I feel like her answer was so well balanced.
It was
like, focus on what you can control, find a good hobby, surrender to music, meditate. I just felt like I had a therapy session. Also, one response, I love what you said about connecting to what our ancestors went through and how if they can do it, we can too. I think if you haven't seen the Black Studies episode where I talked to a professor who is the chair of the Africana Studies Department at the University at Buffalo, I'm going to make sure that video is linked in the description. It's on our YouTube page. Please check it out.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that's very hard to follow, Regine. That was beautifully put. I definitely find myself struggling with balance as well. It's so easy to kind of get caught in a circle of just looking at the news, being horrified, but still there's this weird, like, perverse sense of, like, wanting more for some reason. Like, I think maybe it's just wanting to know everything that's going on to then kind of feel somewhat in control of knowing. But, even when it's the same news over and over, I'm still, like, wanting to look at it, and it's really really negatively impacting me, depending on how long I spend doing that, right? And one thing I heard in the last month or so that was really helpful is, this idea of joy, and that we have to let ourselves be joyful and actively seek joy, because if, it seems like maybe sometimes people are feeling guilty for feeling joyful at times, or not wanting to seek it out because things are so bad that like we need to work on that and that's it. But the idea that if we don't seek joy and experience that, then we are letting the fascists win. Then there's no joy. Then they are in complete control, And so we need to find those moments. And I think for me, it's been really helpful to spend time with friends. And yes, discussing the news is helpful. And also, playing games and doing things that are very different stakes than, talking about the news and understanding that. And one other thing I found really useful is, taking walks outside and being away from cars, and more so like on nice nature paths around Buffalo is really nice, just to kind of look at the grandeur of our environment. And we're all people in the scope of this, and the earth is so much more than that. And so to spend time and like think about that is really helpful to me.
Absolutely. And we're hitting the best season for that getting outside thing, the summer into the fall. It's the best time to live in upstate New York, I gotta say. So please, everybody, make sure you're getting outside. I know, like, even during the pandemic, I think everybody got into either like making bread or hiking. I think those are like the two things. So make bread, hike, do those things, and make sure we're taking care of ourselves, I think is the point that we're all making, because, and I love what you said about you have to purposefully seek joy. It can be really hard in a time right now, but we have to. And I think to Regine's point of like what our ancestors have done in the past, they've always found moments for joy or for praise or for celebrating themselves or different things like that, even in the face of adversity. And so it's really, really important that we do that, and we come together as community to celebrate each other. And I think that spaces like the Advocacy in Action Summit, some of these other spaces, I know our city Buffalo has other spaces. I know Open Buffalo has other spaces. There's so many partner organizations that have spaces where community can come together, talk about our issues in a real way, but also feel like we're not alone, because I think that's the biggest thing. And I feel so privileged to, one, work with you both, but also be at PPG, where we get exposed to so many different just powerful, positive people trying to make a change. It makes me hopeful. Like, it doesn't make me as fearful and dreadful and all of those things. And I try to focus on that rather than, the news, like you said, because it's scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Finding joy, it is needed. Going back to your point, I love what you said. Our ancestors, what they used to do, kind of remind me, like, even during war, you will see people when you're hiding, but they're still finding joy in music and using music as a way to cope. And I will go back to even during pandemic, we rely so much on the community being there for each other. And I think during time like this, it's also good having a community that is going to support you, a community that will heal with you, a community that will support you during this time, because it is easy for us to feel like, oh, I need to carry this burden by myself, but you cannot do it. And that during this time, it is the moment that we need community effort to work together and not be divided.
Yeah. And we've talked a lot right now about the individual, kind of like, what are we doing to take care of ourselves? How do we keep going? I don't want to miss on the fact that our partners mainly are kind of 501c3s. And so how is our community network of nonprofit organizations, how can we be moving forward to help advocate with each other? And how can we, as 501c3s, be kind of fighting back? PPG is very, we're a pro at kind of navigating what we can and can't do in the political space as a 501c3, but not everyone is. So Sarah, I know you usually lead our kind of 501c3 training workshop about lobbying and everything. But is there a basic tip you can give folks that are maybe executive directors or directors at 501c3s about how they can be activating their organization in this space?
Yeah, so a lot of times I think 501c3 directors think that they can't lobby at all. But in fact, you actually can lobby quite a bit, and we can talk about what that is versus advocacy. So advocacy includes a lot of different types of things, public education, nonpartisan voter education, educating elected officials about a general topic. 501c3 public charities can do as much of that stuff as they want to anytime. Lobbying is another type of advocacy, and as 501c3 public charities, we can do it. It's just there's a limit to how much that we can do. And lobbying is when you're trying to influence specific legislation or another official government action that's going to require some kind of vote. So as some kind of examples, if you want to talk to an elected official about what your organization does, like you want to go to them and you want to say, we provide XYZ services to this aging population, and you want to just have that conversation, that's advocacy, not lobbying. You can do as much of that as you want to. If you want to meet with a state legislator to talk about the need for affordable housing, again, that's just advocacy. You can do as much of that as you want to. If you want to talk with a legislator about, trying to get more money for your organization, which would be put in the budget, that's something that the legislators have to vote on, and therefore that's lobbying. But that's also allowed. Like we said, we just have to report it out to the IRS every year and also make sure that we're under a certain limit. And we did a training on this last week. We are going to create a recording of that and put it on our website so you can learn more about, what that limit is. It's actually a lot higher than I think a lot of groups would imagine that it is for them. And so, you can end up doing a lot of lobbying and advocacy. But yeah, if there are certain bills or things that you think should be in the budget or whatever the case is, things that need to be voted on, as a 501c3 public charity, you absolutely can lobby for those things. You just need to kind of know all the rules and make sure that you're reporting on it.
Absolutely. And I think the tides are shifting a bit, especially for 501c3s. I know in the past we've been doing advocacy for a long time, and a lot of 501c3s had the attitude of not only can we not lobby, but maybe we shouldn't be in that space, right? Maybe it's not our role. And I think the tides have shifted enough where we need to be working on all levels, even 501c3s. So I'm really glad that we have that resource and that we're able to kind of offer that expertise or advice to our community network, because it's really important that we're not just empowering individuals, but we're also empowering other entities like organizations as well. So go ahead.
Yeah. One more thing to add too. I think as 501c3s, especially direct service providers, those organizations are in such a good position to lobby on certain bills. They work with people day in and day out. They see how the systems work. They see how it could be improved. And so, better for them to lobby than for, someone off the street with less experience in any of that to be lobbying. The 501c3s, we should be lobbying to make sure that those changes are being made that we see need to be made. And also having access to clients who might be willing to speak about their personal stories to legislators is so impactful. So that's another huge way that folks can get involved too.
Absolutely. Regine, have you definitely seen a shift in kind of who wants to be activated in policy work? Do you see it going in a positive direction now that people feel like, I need to get involved now?
Yeah, with everything going on, I feel like people are in the spirit of fight.
Yeah.
It is difficult to stay neutral and just hold, just sit down and watch everyone doing it. And I was just having conversation this week, and one of the question was, if this is recorded in the history, what would they say Regine did? I was just sitting down and waiting for people to do the work or run away, or I was brave enough to fight. So going off Sarah's point, I think it is good for a lot of organizations to stand up and fight, especially with budget cuts. So if you're working with survivors of domestic violence, or you're working in housing and all your budget is, is gone. Now you have no service to offer your client. And not only that just impact client, but also impact you. Maybe that program was also connected to your moral values. Now you feel defeated with that. Now you want to fight back. And then also with organizations, you just have to find an issue area that it is impacting your organization and fight back. It is difficult to just sit there and wait for your client being impacted and you do nothing. And then the other thing that I think organizations have come to realize, if you are relying on the federal money and that is gone, now what? So are you going to do fundraising? Are you going to look for private foundations to support your program? What are you going to do? So either way, there is no room for you to sit down. You have to do something. You could, I think when it comes to advocacy, most people think that you need to do these bigger things. You could just be, as an organization, sign a petition on a particular issue, supporting that issue. You could be at the forefront or speaking and going lobbies. So you don't need to be the one attending a coalition meeting every day, because I know with nonprofit, capacity is always a big issue, and you feel like, oh my goodness, you have laid off a lot of people. Now you don't have capacity to actually do advocacy, but you could start with one issue. You don't need to attend all those issues and support one at a time.
Absolutely. And I think it's to your point of choose what you can control and focus on that. And if we can do that, we're kind of dividing and conquering then, right? Because there is a problem of burnout, which is another session that Regine's going to be doing at our Advocacy and Action Summit. So everyone, please make sure all of the stuff that we've talked about today is going to either be at the workshops that in our Advocacy and Action Summit on Saturday, or upcoming virtual workshops, as we talked about, for the National Crisis Response. And we're also going to be creating a resource page on our website of training materials, of materials from other organizations that are partnering with us to talk about some of these topics. And obviously, I'm going to be continuing this series on the podcast talking about national issues and how they are impacting the local level, and who locally in Buffalo Niagara is working on rectifying or trying to fight back against some of the issues that are happening coming down from the federal level. So please make sure you stay tuned. This has been, and I will hope before I sign off, I want to thank you both for being on with me. Thank you so much, my wonderful colleagues. I'm so happy to be in this fight with you, and I'm privileged to have you as coworkers.
Likewise.
Same here.
Thank you so much, everyone. Please come to Advocacy and Action Summit Saturday. It's at Buff State University. I don't know if we ever said the location, but April 26th, 9:30 in the morning, all the way until 4:30 in the afternoon. If you have to just pop in for a little bit, pop out, that's okay too. It's really open to anybody, free to the public. We are going to be in Bolger and Caldell Hall at Buffalo State University. So stop by. This has been The Public Good from PPG, or Partnership for the Public Good, which is an organization of over 380 partner organizations working to build a Buffalo Niagara, and I think now entire country maybe. But we are going to be doing it one step at a time on the local level here in Buffalo Niagara region. We thank you so much for joining us here on The Public Good, and we'll see you next week.